everything, and I'll present my screen. Okay, so far we have learned about HTML. Let's just write down the topics that we have learned. HTML, then you learned a little bit of CSS, then you learned a bit of XML, correct? So these were the things that we have covered, and now we have let's say PHP, and we have a few more things to cover, like JavaScript, and then SQL. Okay, so I thought of starting with PHP yesterday, but then in the interest of assignment and everything, I thought of rearranging the PHP to the next part. Okay, I thought of rearranging the PHP to the next part, and then we will have the JavaScript now. Okay, so let's try what is JavaScript. Okay, say for example, we had already come across let's say we have already discussed about web server, browser, etc., right? And mentioned about client side scripting and server side scripting, correct? So what is client side scripting and what is server side scripting? Can someone tell me that quickly? Students, in whatever way you understand, it need not be a textbook definition.
Sir, client-side scripting adds interactivity to the user interface, and server-side scripting makes the business logic of complex websites.
Okay, so thank you, Shubham, for that answer. So Shubham said that client-side scripting makes the web pages, right, more interactive. And he also mentioned that the server side scripting will allow the business logic to reside at the server. Is that correct, Shubham?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what you said is okay, correct. Okay, but I have few questions there. So the question is, why have client side scripting to make my web page interactive? Can't I do it with server side scripting alone?
Sir, you can means we can do it, but it will means a lot of traffic will be there for every single small interaction. We have to send the request. So
So that is the
consumption will
most
be much.
accurate answer. Okay, so what Shubham has said is that, so I asked him, why can't I just do it with server side scripting? Do I always need client side scripting? So for instance, if I want to make it interactive, right, a web page means that you will have a website loaded on your web browser, and it doesn't matter where I click and how it get processed. So when I click, can't it just talk to the server do the things and then return me the response? So that was the question I asked, why do we need client side scripting? And then Shubham said that it will increase the number of requests to the server. Okay, so with just server side scripting, the number of requests to the web server will increase drastically. Okay, and may not be able to respond fast. thus slowing down the response at peak time, right? While client side scripting can help to reduce the server load, okay, and offload a bit of the computational load to the client computer itself, rather than the server computer. Okay, so it means that you should not try to solve everything with just server side scripting. Of course, that is possible. Okay, for example, many years back, right, I think maybe back in 2000 and I think it was in 2007, okay, or 8, okay, I wrote a URL shortening service when I was doing my engineering, okay, doing BTech, okay. So it was called hackurl.com. So since getting small domain names were costly, this was the one we got. Okay, now it is not active. Okay. The code is not on GitHub, but is in one of my external hard drives now, and the web instance or database. Okay, so what I mean to say is that okay, I wrote a URL shortening service back in 2007 or 8. I don't remember exactly when. Most probably it could be 7 or it could be 6 also. Okay. Now that website was hackurl.com. It was something similar to tinyurl.com. Okay, tinyurl.com, right? So the idea is that you have to enter a link for any link. Okay, say let's say we go to okay, this particular link, right? I can copy this and I can enter it in hackurl.com website. Once I enter it over there, right, it will return me that the link will be now you can access hackurl.com/1, and that will go to this particular link. Okay, same way it will create dynamic new links. So I just need to enter the new link code that I get, and it will take me to the appropriate website. Okay, so I hadn't okay, so let me just delete this. I hadn't used even a single line of JavaScript or client side scripting. It was completely written using PHP and HTML alone, not even CSS, because all you need is web response and a text box to submit the URL. Okay, so yes, it is possible, and we can actually write websites without having to use CSS or JavaScript. But CSS makes handling the content and handling the pages much easier, while JavaScript will allow you to make your page more interactive. Now, what does it mean by more interactive? So, let us say that I can click on a button and it can immediately update a part of the page with some content, okay, and not having to reload the entire page. So, which means that if I generally try to go to a website, let us say that I go to I want to go to example.org. Okay, I am going to example.org. Now, when I type the domain name and pressed enter, it took a while because it had to contact, say if I'll tell you, so trace route example.org, right? So it is now trying to see from where do I, which way do I go to example.org. So which means that this is the connection that it has established for accessing that particular website. Okay, so whenever this particular website example.org was accessed, this, you know, it included my browser making a request to the web server that is hosting example.org. Now, if I look up for ns lookup example.org, okay, it told me that it is available in the address 93.184.216.34, and you can see that the last two responses that I have received was from example.org website. So which means that I had to send a request, okay, an HTTP request via the TCP headers, and it went through these hops, okay, one by one, and it gave me the response back. So I was just looking at the route that it has taken, and I know that this is the IP address in which this particular example.org is hosted. Okay, so which means that every time I want to reload a page, or I want to load some content of the page, and then I want to refresh the entire page, right, I have to send a request to through all these computers, okay, to the example.org or the website which I want to access, okay, and then it has to respond back. So you can understand that it will take some time, right? It will take some time for the whole operation to complete, right? 0.187 milliseconds, 0.701 milliseconds, 5.444 milliseconds, 203.35 milliseconds. So these are the response time from the various servers I have received. I mean, you know, when I was trying to connect to this particular example.org. Okay. So it is a time taking operation. That is what you need to understand. So that is where we are going to learn something called JavaScript. Okay. So JavaScript is a programming language. It's a programming language, but it is made for the web, or it is made for the web browsers, where what you will do is you will use this programming language and make your HTML pages or make your web pages more interactive, or you know, it will become more responsive, and you will have less time interacting with the server. Say for example, if there is a particular part of the okay, for that particular thing, the best example would be your Gmail inbox. Now when you go to your Gmail inbox, right, you will see a small refresh icon there. So I'm not showing my inbox. So there is a small refresh icon over there, and when you click on the refresh icon, right, not the refresh icon that you see here on this particular web browser, but I'm telling about this is the refresh icon. So not this particular icon, but within the page, within the HTML page of gmail.com, you will see this particular icon at a particular location, and when you click on it, right, it doesn't reload the entire page, but it instead reloads the content of your email inbox. Okay, so if a new email has come to your inbox, then it will show you the new email as the first email, or the at the top of the list, which was not displayed until few seconds back, until you click that refresh button. So when you click that refresh button, what it has done is, instead of loading, so let me okay, so right, okay, so when we click on when I am trying to load in Gmail, right, what you can see is, okay, I'm just loading it. Okay, when I'm loading it, it says loading standard view and loading HTML view. Okay, so let me click on load the HTML view. Okay, yeah, I think I clicked on the correct thing, right. Okay, so this would be the email inbox if I open it with HTML alone. Now this one, right, if I click on refresh, you can see that still over here there is some sort of JavaScript that is running here, okay, which, or some client side script that is running it, and it is not causing the entire page to reload. Okay, so I'm just reloading it, and let me remove this part. Okay, yeah, so now it's loading it in the standard view, which means that it is a bit heavier software than the normal HTML software alone. And now when you click on the refresh, if a new email was sent to me, so let me just send an email to me myself, Anup JT, test email. Okay, oh my goodness, yeah, the moment I sent it, right, it automatically reloaded it. Let us say that if I sent let's say if somebody else had sent me that email, right, this particular email, test email, wouldn't be shown to me immediately. Instead, it would be shown to me only if I press the refresh button. Okay, so once I click the refresh button, it would show me the email. And what you can understand is that it has not reloaded your entire web page. Okay, so your entire web page is something that you see on the screen right now, which I am showing to you, right. So if I press on this refresh, you can see that it will give me an option to load the standard view and load the HTML view and all those things. While if I press just refresh over here, right, you can see that nothing much has actually happened here. But if I have an email that has come to me, it will be updated as the first email that I have to read, or the latest email that I have received. Okay, so that is the thing that done by JavaScript. And over here in Gmail, they what they do use is something called Ajax, or asynchronous JavaScript. Okay, so that is what is used by Gmail. Now, okay, so let's go to JavaScript. Okay, so a web browser, this is on the right side of the slide. You have a web browser representation, and on the left side of the image you have a web browser representation. So a web browser generates a request to the web server to try and get hello.php. It will execute the script, and it will give me the HTML response output. Okay, and this output is then worked on by the JavaScript at the client side. Okay, so this is what happens when you say about web browser, web server, and client side or server side scripting. So the server side script is the script that runs at the server or run on the server. Okay, and the client side script is the script that is run at the local computer, which is generating the web request. So the web browser will generate the request, get the response back, and then the JavaScript will do some changes on the web browser elements, etc., based on what it will execute. Okay, so the client side script code runs in the browser after the page is sent back from the server, and often this code manipulates the page or responds to user actions. Okay, so as I told you here, right, in the Gmail inbox, when I am clicking this, right, it is actually the Ajax which is actually doing this particular thing, or the JavaScript which is doing this thing, or the client side script that is doing the work for me. But over here, if I am refreshing, the web browser is sending a new request to the web server again. So when I do this refresh, that is within the page, the complete data transfer from my web browser or the client computer to the server is much lesser than when I press the refresh in the browser. Okay, so this means that it will still transmit some data depending on the condition, or depending on the situation or the event that has happened, and it will just transmit very minimal amount of data, and that is the advantage with JavaScript. Okay, you will be able to make some changes to the web page, and you will be able to I can click on this thing, so and then I can just click and drag on this thing, right, and it says move 5 conversations, and it gives me something like a graphical user interface or something that you can think of, right. This is all done by the JavaScript part. Okay, now so the client side script, that is the JavaScript that we are learning now. Now you can you can use PHP or Python or whatever language that you are using at the server, and you can still be using the server side scripting, but the client side scripting, right, it makes the web pages more usable, efficient, and event driven. Okay, so for example, if I go to, let's say, onlinesbi.com website, and I can right click here, but at some page when I try to right click, right, it will give me a pop-up, and same way when I go to IRCTC website, it might give me a pop-up if I try to right click on the page. So which means that whenever I have used the mouse and moved to a particular place and clicked on the button, that's an event that has happened, and the JavaScript does the response instead of sending this particular button click to the server. Okay, so it's usable, efficient, and event driven. And with regards to the server side programming, there are benefits, like it is secure, compatible, okay, and it is powerful as well. So secure, has access to servers private data, clients cannot see the source code. Okay, it does not have any browser compatibility issues, because the browser is just rendering the output, so I don't have to worry whether it is HTML5 compatible, like whether the JavaScript can run on that, and all of those things I don't have to worry about. And it is powerful, it can write files, open connections to servers, connect to databases, etc., which the client side scripting cannot actually do it. Okay, just a second. Okay, so these are the reasons why we will use the client side programming, and sometimes we do not want to use it as well. Okay, so what is this JavaScript? Okay, so is it Java? Is it the Java programming language? Does it run on the Java virtual machine? Okay, is that JavaScript? though the names may be very similar with regards to Java, and it is quite easy that you may get uh, to think that it could be related to Java, okay, but it is not Java, okay. So JavaScript is a lightweight programming language. It's a scripting language. It is used to make the web pages interactive. It inserts dynamic text into the HTML, okay. For example, it can enter the username or the date of the current date, react to events, example like when the page load user click, when the user clicks at the page load, or when the user right clicks, that's an event. Get information about a user's computer, okay. I can get the browser type or information about the user's computer using the client side script, because when I ask the server to execute a particular thing, the server will be able to understand the characteristics of the server computer alone, right? But with the JavaScript, I will be able to get the information about the user's computer as well, and then I will be able to perform calculations on user's computer. And an example is given here, like form validation. So what does form validation mean? We have already seen HTML forms, right, where we can have multiple data to be entered, and then you have to finally click on submit. But it is possible that you may have entered a wrong email address, like an email address always have an @ and .org or .com and something like that, or domain dot the top level domain, okay. So that's how the email address is, right. So if I accidentally enter some other text instead of a proper email address, then instead of actually sending the whole data to the server, I can actually do this particular checking at the client side itself, whether I have entered the correct data, and then send it to the server only if I have entered it correctly, and verifying it using the client side script. Okay, so that is what we mean by the form validation. Okay, so another example could be, let's say I have to enter the phone number in a form, and the phone number in India is usually 10 digits, and and then you have the country code, okay. So the country code plus the complete 10 digit number, and in case I enter any wrong characters, or I have not entered 10 characters, okay, 10 numbers, then do I need to still send it to the server and wait for the server to handle this particular data and then return an error to me? No, I don't have to do that, okay. Instead, I can do it in the JavaScript itself, at the client side itself, okay. So a JavaScript is a web standard, but it is not supported identically by all the browsers, okay. So not all the web browsers have support for the JavaScript, and this is not related to Java other than by the name and some syntactic similarities, okay. So it's not similar to the Java. Of course, there are some syntactic similarities, or some similarities with regards to the syntax. So JavaScript is an interpreted programming language, and it is not a compiled programming language, okay. So it is a more relaxed syntax and rules, okay. So it has fewer and looser data types, okay, which means that the data type is not strongly typed. So you don't have to specify the data type, etc., and you don't have to declare the variables, just like how you do it in Python. You don't have to declare the variables, but in Java you have to. And errors are often silent, with few exceptions, okay. So there are when you ask people about JavaScript, JavaScript came in, I think, very recently after Java and everything, probably. Let me just see. Let me see. Yeah, it appeared first in 1995. That's 26 years ago. And of course, when you say that it appeared in 1995, you should understand that it was not in the mainstream, or it was not used by all the websites immediately. Okay, so 1994, I think, right? Netscape browser. So the Netscape browser, I think it came up in the year nine. Let me see, what year was it? That was sometime in the year 94, if I'm correct. Okay, even before the uh, Netscape browser version. Okay, first. Oh, is it 2004? Okay, could be. So, which means that the Netscape browser was one of the very first web browsers to make it free, and also uh, made a lot of competition with Internet Explorer with regard, which was packaged with Microsoft, etc. So, which means that this is something that has come up very recently, and then slowly people started adapting it, people started using it, and it became more and more popular. Okay, so people popularized it. Now during this particular period, right, if you ask some people who are good programmers, or experienced programmers, they would tell you JavaScript is something that probably they wouldn't want to work on. Okay, it is very it's not very straightforward. It can because you can see this is one of the problems with JavaScript. There are errors. Errors are but often silent, and it won't be shown to you. And the way the data is handled in JavaScript makes it more dangerous at some point in time. Okay, so unless you do the programming properly, and you are absolutely sure about what you are doing, JavaScript could actually make your life very difficult. Okay, so so key construct is the function rather than the class. Like in Java has classes, but here the key construct is the function rather than the class, and first class functions are used in many situations. So this is contained within a web page and integrates with its HTML and CSS content. Okay, so this is not at all related to Java, but except some syntactic similarities. And this is cannabis leaf that is shown here. So which means that it's like Java plus some more capabilities, but more or less it makes it very cumbersome. That's what the whole equation kind of tries to tell you. Okay, so JavaScript versus PHP. So there are some similarities and differences. So obviously the difference is that PHP is a server-side scripting language, and JavaScript is a client-side scripting language. But you can also look at let's say Node.js and React.js, right? So you can see that when you looked up for React.js and Node.js, okay, it's a library that does the it also does the server side scripting part. Okay, so So it is used to create backend services. So for example, right, our IIIT website is running as a Node app. Okay, and our dev.iitt website, right, which is actually not working right now, is running as a React.js app. Okay, so yeah. So one is client side and one is server side, but you cannot completely say that JavaScript doesn't have server side capabilities nowadays. There are, okay. So similarities are both are interpreted, not compiled. Both are relaxed about syntax, roots and types. Both are case sensitive. Both have built-in regular expressions for powerful text processing. Okay, so one thing that I want to tell you is that we have not learned PHP. But imagine PHP as a C-like programming language, okay, like a C-like programming language with similar syntax and similar ways of working. Okay, just imagine it like that. So PHP is a server-side script, and the JavaScript script is a client-side script, and we are trying to understand what are the similarities and the differences between JavaScript and PHP. Okay, so the differences can be JavaScript is more object oriented and less procedural. So object oriented is when you apply dot functions, right? So noun dot verb, or when you have string dot title instead of title of string, right? It's then it becomes procedural. So it's more object oriented and less procedural. And JavaScript focuses on user interfaces and interacting with a document PHP on HTML output and files and forms. JavaScript runs on the client's browser and PHP code runs on the web server. Okay, so this is the last point, the reason why I just told you about Node.js and React.js. So just take a look at it. Okay, and so just like how you had done with CSS, we can actually have the JavaScript written inside the HTML file itself, or it can be stored as a separate file, and then you can link it in your script part in the header part of the HTML, in the head section of the HTML. Okay, so the script tag should be placed in HTML pages head. Okay, and script code is stored in a separate .js file, and JS code can be placed directly in the HTML file's body or head like CSS, but this is a bad style and should separate content, presentation and behavior. Okay, so just like how we were discussing about CSS, if you try and put JavaScript inside the HTML code, as and when the whole project becomes bigger and bigger, it will be more difficult to handle the JavaScript part. Okay, so this is a JavaScript statement alert. Okay, so say you have an alert box that is given here. So alert message. So in this alert, IE6 detected, suck mode enabled. So it's just saying that we have found that the browser is Internet Explorer 6. It is actually a very bad browser. So that's what the message means. So the JavaScript statement alert, you can use the statement alert and give a message something like this. So it will pop up a particular dialog box with a message when you try to open that web page. Okay. It has variables, so you can just mention var. You don't have to specify the type because it is loosely typed. You just mention that it is a variable, and then the identifier is the next one, and then you give the value. So var age is equal to 32, var weight is equal to 127.4. So first one was an integer, second one was a float, and then the third one, var client name is equal to Coney client. Okay, now that is a string, okay, which means that we haven't specified what kind of data is the variable age or weight or client name going to store, okay, but instead we just assign the value, and based on the value it selects the type loosely. Okay, so variables are declared with a var keyword, and the variable names are case sensitive. Okay, so you have to use client capital NAME. Okay, if you want to use the variable again, you cannot use small n. Now types are not specified, but JavaScript does have types, and this is loosely typed. So JavaScript internally has types, but it is a loosely typed programming language. It's a loosely typed scripting language, and you don't have to specify the type. So the types are number, boolean, string, array, object, function, null, and undefined, right? So number, boolean, string, array, object, function, null, and undefined. You can actually find out the type of the variable, what kind of variable, what kind of data is the variable holding, right, by actually using the type of function. Okay, oh, I'm sorry. Copy link address. Firefox didn't have started. All right. There's nothing given type of directly in this particular link. Okay, so I just tried to see what was there in this particular link, but it is not. It's not about just the type of. Okay, so JavaScript. Say in this example, right, what they have shown is they have assigned the values, okay, just directly, and are looking at the type of the object that it has created. Okay, so let's just okay, so so you have variables, and you know that it is loosely typed, so you don't have to specify the type of the variable. Instead you just work with the value itself, and there is number type. Say for example, the number is having both a float and integers. So you can have var enrollment is equal to 99, var median grade is equal to 2.8, and var credits is equal to 5 plus 4 plus 2 into 3. Okay, you can do it this way. So the integers and real numbers are of the same type. No int versus double in the JavaScript. So there is no integer and double, and the operators are the same, just like how we have it in C and C++, etc., or in C, Java, etc., and it has a similar precedence to Java. Okay, and many operators auto converts 2 into 3 as 6. Okay, so here one thing that you need to understand with JavaScript is that in this particular example, right, double quote 2 is actually a string. So the number 2 that is mentioned here, where I am hovering my mouse pointer right now, okay, this particular 2 is a string, and a string into a number 3 was calculated to be 6, because a string which is also a number was converted into a number, and 2 into 3 was done, and the answer was obtained to be 6. So it also does the auto conversion. Okay. So if you have done a C programming in your course, right? You have done that. You would know that if you do the in C programming, it would result in an error. Okay. Then you can have the string type. So for example, var s is equal to conic line, and var f name is equal to s dot substring. Okay, that is, so I'm going to take a substring from the string s. So we have already discussed that it works more in the object oriented way rather than the procedural way. Okay, so var f name is equal to s dot substring, then the starting index and the ending index. So starting index is 0 to the index of the first space. So that is the first name, f name. Okay, and var length or var len is equal to s dot length, and you can see that the total number of characters are 13 here, so you will get the value 13 in the len. Okay, and then you can have var s2 is equal to Melvin Merchant. So this is just an example to show that you can use either double quotes or single quotes to assign a string value to a variable. Okay, so you have different methods, like methods means there are different functions, or methods are generally associated with object oriented programming, and methods are class methods. So you can have s dot character at, s dot character code at, s dot from character code, s dot index of, right, and s dot last index of, s dot replace, s dot split, s dot substring, s dot to lowercase, s dot to uppercase, right? All of these things are possible. So character at returns a one letter string. Okay, so it will still return one character, but since there is no char type, it is mentioned that it will be considered as a string data type. Say for example, you have number string, but you don't have integer and double, and here in string you don't have character and string, but it is just string. Okay, and length property is s dot length. Okay, so next is concatenation with plus. Say for example, if I have 1 plus 1, right, if I type 1 plus 1, here 1 is a number and this 1 is also a number, then and it will result in the value getting it as 2. But on the other hand, if I do string 1 plus number 1, the number 1 is converted into a string and then it is concatenated, and then you will get it as 11 as the answer. Okay. And you have more operations with string. Okay, so the escape sequences, right, say for example the backslash n and the backslash t you must be knowing, and then you have backslash single quote, backslash double quote, backslash ampersand, and backslash etc., right. So these are all the escape sequences. So these escape sequences are very similar to what you have already seen in C programming language, right, and it is similar to your Java also. So you have escape sequences, and you can convert between numbers and strings. Okay, say for example here we have a variable count is equal to 10, and variable s1 is equal to empty string plus count's value is 10. So the empty string can be considered as a null, and so it's a string plus 10, and 10 is converted into a string. Okay, that will be the output. And then you have, let's say, variable s2 is equal to count plus bananas are, that's a string, bananas are, okay. So count becomes a string, and then 10 bananas are. Then you have var n1. So over here you are given a string, okay, and you are using the function parse int, okay. So you are going to use the function parse int, which is trying to parse the string and get you the integer in that string, and that returns you 42. In 42 is the answer, okay. And then var n2 is equal to parse float booyah. Booyah is a string which doesn't make any sense. What do you mean by it doesn't make any sense? As in, it is not a number, right? Booyah, it's a string, and we really don't know what is booyah in any number representation. So it's a not an answer. NaN. Okay. So to access the character of a string, use the index or caret. So you can use the array indexing method, okay. Of course, strings and characters are not separate in JavaScript, okay. So you have a string there, but you can still use the array indexing to access the characters at a particular location. So var first letter is equal to s of 0. So if you have s is equal to, let's say, conic line, right, then s of 0 will be capital C, and var first letter is equal to s dot character at 0. So that will also return as 0. So I can use s dot char at 0 or s of 0, and var last letter, okay. So if I want to find out which is the last letter, then I can use s dot character at s dot length minus 1, okay. So you can understand that the indexing is from 0, okay, 0 to n minus 1. So if there are n characters in a string, then the n minus 1th position will have the nth character. So comments are also very similar to C programming language or Java. You have slash slash, which are single line comments, and slash star, and which ends with a star slash or an slash asterisk, and which ends with an asterisk star slash. So that's a single line comment and a multi line comment, identical to Java's comment syntax. And in HTML the comment is given like this, greater than exclamation hyphen hyphen. So that's the start of the comment in an HTML, and then whatever comment, and then it ends with hyphen hyphen right arrow, okay. And in CSS, JavaScript and PHP you have multi-line comments as well as single line comments, okay. And in PHP you can use hash comment also, okay. So let's take a look at loops. So loops are, you know, if you have done some Java, if you have tried to read some Java code, you will see that it is the loop is the same as what you have done in C programming language. So you have for loop, as I come here, which starts with the initialization condition and then the update and then the statements, okay. So this is a for loop for a JavaScript, and it is the same as the Java's for loop or the C programming language for loop. So let's take a look at the example. Var sum is equal to 0, for var of I equal to 0 to I less than 100, I plus plus, and sum is equal to sum plus I. So it is taking the sum of all the elements, sum of the first 99 elements, correct, or the first 100 elements starting from 0. That is what it is doing. Oh my goodness, right, okay. And next one is another example. Var s1 is equal to hello, var s2 is equal to empty string. For var of I equal to 0 to I less than s dot length, okay. and I plus plus. It must be wrong slightly, so it might be s1 dot length. That's what I am assuming. Okay, so this is an example of for loop. Then you have math also to be math functions also in your JavaScript. You have the library math, math. So you have math.floor, math.random, math.py, etc. So the methods are absolute, abs, ceil, ceil, cos, floor, log, max, min, power, random, round, sine, square root, tan, and the properties are e and pi, right? 2.7 that value, and pi 3.14. So those are the constants. So you have the methods absolute, abs, ceil for if you want to you have a floating number and you want to round it off to the next integer, then you use the function ceil. And if you want to use the function floor, that you will use it when you have a number and you want to round it off to the previous integer value. So ceil, cos is cosine, floor, log is logarithmic, maximum, minimum, power, random, round, sine, square root, and tan. You have relational logical operators, like relational operators, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and, or, not. Okay, so and then you have equality, like equal to, not equal to, and then you have triple equal to and not equal to, which let me just check what it is. Yeah, so this is the major difference. So this is an equality operator, just like our equal to, but it also have to make sure that the data types are also the same. Okay, and what is this not equal to in JavaScript? So it has to look for both not equal value or not equal type. So when you have the additional equal to, that is looking at the type also. Okay, so then you have most logical operators automatically converts the types. So that is the reason why we have this additional triple equal to and not double equal to. Okay, so if I do 5 less than 7, right, it can, these are all, this will equate to be true, while 5 is actually a number and 7 is actually a string, but it does the conversion implicitly. And 42 equal to 42.0, that also does the conversion automatically. But if I do 42 equal to, that is the triple equal to, then it will return me false. Then I have 5.0 equal to 5, that will also return the answer true. Okay, so the triple equal to and the not double equal to are strict equality tests and checks both type and value. Okay, so which means that 5.0 equal to 5 will be returning the value false. Okay, then you have the Boolean type and so on. So let us continue from the Boolean type from the next class. Okay, I think we have been recording for an hour and streaming for an hour. So let's yeah. So do you have any questions regarding whatever we have tried so far? Oh, before I leave, I will also just take you to, let's say, If you go to W3 schools, you can go to the JavaScript tutorial home. So this is very important that you go here, okay? Very important that you go here, take a look at the, JavaScript. So for example, over here, right, there is an example, my first JavaScript, click me to display date and time. So when I click on it, right, it displays this content. So if I click on try me, then you can see that it says document.getElementID demo.innerHTML is equal to date. Okay, so you can see that this is the HTML code with some JavaScript which is inside the HTML itself. Okay, and when I click on the particular button, it displays the current date and time and the and the location, correct? So please go through this JavaScript tutorial, okay, one by one. Okay, so JavaScript is one of the 3 languages all web developers must learn: HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Okay, and so just go through the tutorial one by one. Okay, in our particular course CSOE13 Web Technology, we have a constraint of time because you have to learn HTML, CSS, XML, JavaScript, PHP and SQL, which means that as I had initially told you, there is a lot of things that needs to be done based on whatever you have learned from different subjects, right? Now let's just yeah, okay. Okay, so I have 2 JavaScripts. One is which will display the date and time, and another one will just change the HTML content. Okay, so what you can see here is, over here this is the button type and the on click action that is mentioned here, right? So on click, what it needs to be done is the JavaScript part. So over here also you have the on click something that is mentioned here. Okay, now the rest of the part is the HTML, right? So PID equal to demo, JavaScript can change HTML content. That's in the text replacement part, and PID demo /p with no text in here is the one that is used for the say for the time. Okay, so let me just put the time to be display, time not displayed. Okay, so it will show me the page like this, and when I click on the click me to display date and time, right, it will display the date and time. Now if I go to the right part and I say that hello instead of hello JavaScript, I will say hello CSOE13 Web Technology class. Okay, so you can see that now I'm going to run the code. Yeah, the code has run. It says what can JavaScript do? JavaScript can change HTML content. So when I click on this button, right, it says hello CSOE13 Web Technology class. So please go through this W3 schools, probably the easiest way for you to try out the things and learn it by examples one by one slowly. Okay, so do that. Take the, you have to put in that effort, only then you will be learning these particular things, and we will have to move on to bit more of programming in the web technology. And now why did I give you this JavaScript tutorial now? So yesterday I had shown you the assignment 1, right? I had told you that I will add some more questions. So I want an XML data sheet to be created, okay, which will be parsed and dynamically loaded. And okay, so this is the question. Okay, this question is quite not very complete, because there can be a lot of things that you can do with this particular thing. Say for example, let me see whether I yeah. So in this one, right, the assignment 1, I've created a CV in HTML or CSS which look exactly the same as your printed CV or CV in PDF format. Second one is create the same CV and as an HTML, as a HTML CV with multiple pages or a single page with easy navigation, etc. And then you have an XML data sheet to be created, which will be parsed and dynamically loaded and displayed in web pages. Okay, so the third one, right, it can be a shopping website, a site showing student details, etc. So you have to define and tell me what you are going to create, and you have to create that. So this is the requirement. You have to use XML, then HTML, oh I'm sorry, data sheet, that's XML data sheet to be created, which will be passed dynamically. Okay, so using HTML, CSS and JavaScript and XML. All right, is that clear, students? These three, I'll tell you the last date for submission for this shortly. Okay, do you have any questions? Okay, I think since we have no questions, I will leave. Let us meet in the next class. Okay, stop streaming. Bye.